It is no secret that Western Washington is an innovative leader in aviation and aerospace.
A retired astronaut with ties to both aerospace and aviation is making a special trip to the Seattle area to share not only her story, but also her father's. Holly Menino spoke with retired astronaut Jan Davis.
Retired NASA astronaut Jan Davis is making a trip to the Emerald City from Florida. Jan is releasing her latest book and also talking about her first book. There's stories of her time in space as well as her father's time as a pilot, and there are two stories twined together. Jan, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, I was selected as an astronaut in 1987. After 3 tries, I finally made it. So I flew on the space shuttle 3 times. So I flew in 1992 on a mission that had a space laboratory and a Japanese astronaut with us, first Japanese that had flown on the shuttle. My second flight, the first one was STS-47 in 1992 on Endeavour. My second flight was in 1994, was on Discovery, and it was the first time we had a Russian cosmonaut on the space shuttle. So that was very exciting. And then my third flight was in 1997, was STS-85, again on Discovery. And so on my missions, I did scientific experiments. I operated the mechanical arm to deploy and retrieve satellites, and just whatever was required to do the mission. I was trained to do a spacewalk, extravehicular activity, but we didn't have a scheduled extravehicular activity, so I didn't get the opportunity to go outside the shuttle, but still it was a remarkable experience and great crews and great missions, very successful.
You said you finally got the chance after 3 tries. What was that like to finally get to go to space after being turned down a couple times?
Yeah, I, was one of 5,000 applicants the first time I applied, and they interviewed 128, so I felt pretty good about that, but I didn't get selected, nor the second time I applied. But the third time I was selected, so that was very exciting, just unbelievable time. I didn't really do anything differently. I just, persevered and was able to get selected. So I always tell young people, don't get discouraged. If you have a dream or a goal, just keep trying, and the benefit will be worth the wait and hard work to get there.
Mm-hmm. And 3 seems like a lucky number for you, the third time, and also 3 missions.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about your dad and how he is playing a role in your upcoming visit to Seattle.
My father grew up in Texas, always wanted to fly. He grew up in the 20s, so not many young boys had that as an aspiration, but he had the opportunity to go on an airplane ride, and he decided that's what he wanted to do for his profession. He knew he couldn't afford flying lessons, so he had to join the military to become a pilot. So he did pay for his own flying lessons. He worked for a couple of years and took flying lessons and went to college with the money he had saved. And while he was at college, he met my mother, and they married the day before Pearl Harbor. They eloped and got married. So that was December of 41. And so in January of 42, he signed up to be in the Army Air Forces and became a B-17 pilot. So after his 9 months of training, he received his silver wings, was assigned the B-17, and later flew over to England to fly in the Air War in the 8th Air Force. So he was an inspiration to me because I always wanted to be a pilot because of him, and greatly influenced my decision to become a pilot. During his 7th combat mission, he was shot down and became a prisoner of war. So he was a prisoner of war for 21 months in Germany at Stalag Luft 3. And he stayed in the Air Force after the war. So I was born at Patrick Air Force Base when he was working on the Matador missile. So there are a lot of parallels between his training, his career, and mine. And that's why I decided to write a book about both of us.
Well, we will have part 2 of Holly's interview with Jan Davis in our next hour. What an incredible career.
I know, I'm just thinking about, the 3 missions that she was on, like what she got to see that so many of us don't get to see and how cool that is.
History making, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Here's part 2 of Holly's interview with her.
Yeah, what will we find in your book? Tell us what it's called and the stories that you include in your latest book.
The book is called Airborne, 2 Generations in Flight. And originally I was just going to write about his story. And the more I did the research about his flying, his career, being a POW, he didn't talk about it, so I had to do a lot of research. The more I learned about him, I realized that his career and mine had a lot in common. So I start out the book talking about him and his flying career, being a POW, and then staying in the Air Force, and then I was born. So it was amazing, the thread of common things between his training and flights and mine, and that thread kind of carries throughout the book.
Mm-hmm. And you will be talking and doing a book signing at the Museum of Flight in Seattle on Friday and Saturday. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you expect with that event?
Yes. So Friday night, I believe it's a members only event and book signing. It'll be by the shuttle, space shuttle training mock-up, which I trained in Houston. And then Saturday, I'll be also doing a talk about the book, my story, my father's story, and a book signing. I'm also going to have the worldwide launch of my second book, which was just released yesterday. And so that book is called Airborne. It's a companion volume to the first book, Artistic Musings of a World War II Pilot and POW. And it contains the entire POW journal that he wrote. And he painted beautiful watercolor pictures and colored pencil portraits of his fellow POWs and told stories about life in Stalag Luft 3. So all of that is in the wartime log, which I reproduced in the second book. And he also is quite well known for being a cartoonist for the Stalag Luft 3 newspaper. And the cartoon was called Penny. It was about a female wartime correspondent. And we found that he had saved all 96 of those. So all 96 of those are also published in the book. So that's something really special to, share that for historical purposes and also to sort of complement what was in the first book. So I'll be signing both books at the Museum of Flight.
That's absolutely incredible. Is there a reason why you chose Seattle to do all of this?
Well, they actually approached me about the first book and coming out there. Now, of course, Museum of Flight has a B-17, which is what my father flew, and then they have the shuttle training aircraft. So it's the perfect place to combine the B-17, the aviation part, as well as the space part. And as the second book came to fruition, the timing worked out where I asked them, I said, how would you like to do the worldwide launch of my second book? And so they agreed to do that. And so I'm really looking forward to being there at the museum again and sharing my father's story and my story.
Jan, that's wonderful. We look forward to welcoming you to the Emerald City.
Thank you.
Oh, it's going to be so great to have her here. And what a story.
Incredible.
I mean, thinking about the family connections and the experiences that she had as an astronaut with the 3 missions, just cool stuff.
Aviation and aerospace.
Yes.
So cool.
All into one.
I'm sure that book signing will be well attended.